It's time for ACC Central, presented by Just Means Less.
I drive into right. It's enough. It's back. And it's gone for the cycle. It's a walk-off grand slam. Florida State wins it.
Hosted by Monty Taylor.
In the air, center field. Moore is under it. And on to Omaha for the Cardinals.
Micah Butel.
Fly ball driven into left field. Smith, does he do it? He does! A walk-off homer by Ken Smith.
And Nick Dioli.
Gets it down. Here comes Mac. He is safe. And Boston College wins.
Fastball off the plate for 2 balls, 2 strikes. Monty just got landed on.
There are 2 pigeons roosting right above me, and my can of Pepsi
Smacked into right field. And
Welcome back to another episode of ACC Central. We are in the 4th day of our team takeovers, and it is the Duke Blue Devils. I'm Monty Taylor. This is Nick Dioli and Micah Butel. The boys are back in town all together again, 4 shows in a row. It's a record. I'm just kidding. I don't know. Duke, let's talk about the Blue Devils. It's going to be an interesting year for first-year head coach Corey Muscara. The Blue Devils obviously finished within 1 win of Omaha. Murray State shattered their dreams thanks to Micah's hat theory. And after that, Chris Pollard was hired at Virginia, and a mass exodus followed, leaving Corey Muscara to kind of pick up the pieces and get a team together, which he did. But it's going to be a lot to talk about here with Duke because I think he did a really good job putting this team together. The pitching is going to need to be a lot better than it looks on paper, though. Nick, talk to me about your boy, Corey, getting the job. Moose, the head job. It's been a long time coming.
No, it really has. I mean, look, Corey Muscara has been on everybody's watch list since 23. He was the hottest guy last year. He was the hottest guy before that. When we were in Omaha, guys, like if you weren't watching the game in front of you or talking transfer portal, you were talking about the coaching cycle. And Corey Muscara was a big talk in Omaha, and he wasn't even there. I even told him that, and he didn't believe me. But I was like, no, I can assure you, people were wondering what is happening with you. And shortly after, I think it was in between I think it was right before the last series in Omaha, Coastal and LSU, is when Corey made the announcement was made that Corey was going to Duke. It's well deserved. If anybody can handle the situation there at Duke, it's Corey. He's done, the best job he can so far with getting guys in and such a little notice. I remember hearing like when he got the job, 5 guys were on the roster. That was it. He had to get, he had to crunch. I mean, he had to get his staff in order, which he took a lot from Wake. And he had to hit the teams were already in the portal. Teams had already set up their rosters, almost done with their rosters by the time Corey got to Duke. And so the NCAA gave him a 2-week extension to, kind of solve that. Just the nightmare story I heard from him from June to July was insane. So it's amazing how he even has a team right now. And, not a great team, but just like a respectable team that hopefully can make a little noise in the ACC.
Yeah, and speaking of which, you talked about he only had 5 guys on the roster. Ultimately, he was able to bring back a couple of more guys, but they also lost most of their recruiting class. A lot of those guys that were set to go to Duke are at Virginia now. So you've got that. But Micah, talk to me about this is one of the rare times where we have the key returners instead of key departures because there's so many names to put on the screen for departures. Before we move on, obviously the new era of Duke baseball, let's reflect a little bit. Who are you going to miss the most at Duke, watching at Duke, especially over the last few seasons as we've been deep diving into this program?
I think for me, I mean, again, I can't say I'm sad about AJ Gracia because I get to see him in Virginia. So
on your favorite team.
So I'm not sad about that one. Sorry, Duke. I know that's awful of me. But I think for me, honestly, it's got to be Ben Miller, right? Like just what he brought, not just from a performance standpoint, but I mean, let's be real. He was one of the most fun guys to watch in the sport on and off.
He was the face.
Monty's relationship with Ben Miller is one that I'm quite jealous of too. I feel like Monty had a great relationship with Ben Miller.
There wasn't much of one.
I know, but but you got to tell the story of Ben Miller at least for how much you were around Duke. So, you were around Duke a lot more than I was. But I think Ben Miller, just what all he had was kind of a fun time. So I'll say him.
Absolutely. I agree with you there. I mean, I know Jake McKeever is going to be very upset that Wallace Clark is not around the college game anymore, but there you go. Key returners, you have exactly one member of the lineup back and not many innings from last year's squad back. But they do have a ton of transfers, and I tried to fit as many as I could. A lot of the pitchers didn't fit on there. But we've got some interesting guys. We've got some ACC guys on there that are transferring in, but some A10 guys. We got our second Xavier guy of the takeover series in Jake Lambden, who I interviewed. Awesome guy, scrappy guy. RJ Hamilton, who has an intriguing skill set. Really excited about these guys. I think it's going to be fun to cover Duke. I don't know necessarily how good they're going to be, but I think they're going to be interesting to cover, if that makes sense. I think they're going to be kind of fun to watch and kind of figure out what they're doing, if that makes sense. But who jumps off the page here before we get into things? Obviously, I think Michael DiMartini has to be the guy, right?
Yeah, I think that's one for sure.
Yeah, the A10 player of the year. That's a huge get in the transfer portal. Hit 403 last year with 32 extra base hits, 37 stolen bases, just an absolute monster in center field. A lot of fun to watch. I don't know why I'm asking for you guys to highlight when we're going to go into the rotation, the pitching. Let's talk about the pitching first.
I was about to say something, Monty. I just didn't want to cut you off. I have a tendency to cut you off. So
I just realized we're going to end up highlighting guys too early. Let's move on to the pitching. Now, this is where we're going to have some struggles with staying optimistic here because there's not a lot here. There's some guys that are dudes, but there's not a lot of starting experience or proven guys. So the rotation options, I listed guys for the rotation, but they're not going to have a traditional starter, I feel like, in the sense of a 5-6 inning guy. So really anyone's an option for the rotation.
Yeah, pretty much every single guy that's got more than 5 starts, 10 starts in their career are at a Division III school before this, I think. Is that right, Monty?
I think so. Let me double check. I'm pretty sure.
I know Peter Lemke was a starter at, what was it, Dickinson, I think?
Yep. And Nachowicz was at SUNY Cortland. That's D3.
Yeah. Grayson Walker started a couple
Chicago.
times. He's obviously a transfer from the D3 ranks.
All 3 guys that made 7 or more starts last year are D3 guys.
Yeah. So, I mean, buddy, I mean, again, if there is one coach that is that I can trust to probably get the most out of his guys in 1 year and get them ready for a situation like that, it is Corey Muscara. But goodness gracious, yeah, there is question mark.
I was impressed with a couple of guys in the fall. I think Marcello Mastriani is an underrated guy if he can throw the ball for strikes. Now, he was a starter at Georgetown as a freshman. And he led the Big East in walks and strikeouts, but still had an ERA under 5, which is kind of impressive. Or not walks and strikeouts, walks and hit batters. So if you can have a sub 5 ERA with that, that's intriguing. But he's got 5 pitches. He has a really funky delivery. He's all arms and legs and comes at you from a low slot. I really like him. I just don't know who is starting. I mean, they're going to put a lot of faith in Aiden Weaver, who is somebody who has tantalizing ability, but has never really been able to harness in his previous 3 years. And yet you're going to hopefully depend on that guy to lead your staff. It's going to be a really, really interesting way to see how the Duke coaching staff gets creative with handling the usage of this pitching staff. Nick?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a lot of plug and play. Like the starter that you saw last Friday is probably not going to be the starter that you see next Friday, depending on how well they do. You know, I think Moose has a lot of things to figure out. I think I know the guys around him too, in terms of the staff that he's bringing with, and they should be able to figure something out. I don't think that this will be like, it will be an all-year thing, but at the same time, it won't be. I think they will nail down some guys midway through the season. I think a key guy that they do have in the reliever situation is Nate Britton, a guy that has already worked with Corey at Wake Forest. You know, he didn't play a lot. He's, you know, a bigger dude. He's got some gas. If he can just pass down some of that knowledge to some other guys in the rotation, I mean, Nate could be a starting pitcher. I mean, he's already worked with Corey so much. He's already got a year under his belt. You never know. Britton could be a guy that finds himself in the starting rotation. You just don't know. So I think it's going to be a lot of plug and play and just kind of see what Duke has this year.
Here is an absolute guess at the potential pitching staff. They're really high on Ben Dean. I originally had Marcelo Mastriani in there because I think he could be a starter. I think he could give him 5 innings, but they're not going to go, I think, more than 3 or 4 innings typically. Aiden Weaver seems to be the guy they're kind of set on to be a Friday guy. But again, nobody's going 5 or 6 innings on this staff, I don't think, consistently. But Matt Notchowitz did really impress me in the fall with how he was able to pound the strike zone and keep pitchers off guard. But I'm going to circle a wild card here. David Bovair, he was supposed to be the heir apparent to Charlie Bielenson last season, got hurt, didn't play at all. But when he last played significantly, he had a 2.16 ERA with 26 strikeouts in 25 innings and has a really high upside. If he can get back healthy and kind of claim the closer role, it will go a long way in creating spots for the rest of the staff. But Micah, I know you're not super high. Is this part of the problem you're seeing with Duke's being competitive in the ACC? Is this lack of starting experience, lack of true pitching depth?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, for me, what's hard is you list a key bullpen arm on there, Monty, that I got to see a lot of in my time. Caleb Anderson was a Kingsport Axeman in 2023 when I was there. He obviously was at Wichita State the last few seasons. His numbers were terrible. I mean, let's just be very frank. He had a 7+ ERA in his 2 seasons at Wichita State. He had good stuff, but even in the summer, he showed kind of an inability to control, at least again in Kingsport. Now he had a little bit better of a summer, it sounded like, in 2024 on the Cape, but you know, he was not necessarily the most reliable arm for Kingsport that summer. But I think for me, I mean, just again, like I've said it 1,000 times, it's the floor ceiling thing for me. When you go preseason, the floor is so low. I mean, this is like worst team in the ACC floor. And unfortunately or fortunately, I think the ceiling for this team is just making the tournament. I don't think it's anything more than that. I don't see this team as an Omaha team. I don't see this team like if they made the NCAA tournament, Corey Muscara is the coach of the year in the ACC. Like, straight up. I mean, there's so much to this team that is just so unknown. I mean, obviously we'll get to the lineup here in a minute, but yeah, this is just not a whole lot to be excited about, Monty.
I think there's plenty to be excited about in terms of maybe not this season, but in terms of
in the future for sure. But
and from a coaching standpoint, seeing how they can get creative with certain things because of the limitations.
They will be so fun to watch because you don't know what you're, especially early on in this, and we'll get to the schedule later. Like, I will be very intrigued to see what they trot out there.
Absolutely. Let's take a look. Cider Cannon is moving to the catching role. He will also probably play left field. He is another guy to circle in the lineup. Nolan Johnson, he can catch as well. He played very little at Miami. Brooks Perez is a freshman that just keeps hitting. RJ Hamilton, Jeff Lugie, Andrew Bell, Jake Lambden, Colin Anderson, middle infield guys, and then Colton Quagliano and Will Shaheen. Micah, I'm going to start with you. Can you highlight somebody, for me here?
Honestly, Monty, this was the one when doing a lot of previews that was probably the most stressful for me. This infield, I know very little about. I think the one that popped off the most when having some fun looking at like tape and just reading up on some of the recruiting sites, like RJ Hamilton is someone I'm pretty excited about. Obviously, the Vandy transfer didn't have a ton of. I think he played in like 10 or so games last year for Vanderbilt. But he has a lot of excitement that you kind of saw based off just what he brought to the table in his recruiting profile. Obviously, the injury last year kind of limited him, but he's a very athletic kid. He's like, I think 5'10" or so. Kind of just seeing what he has. I know, Monty, you also highlighted too that when you talked with Corey a little bit, he's really excited about what RJ Hamilton could be. So I think he's someone that I look to that, if Duke is to have a better than expected season, it's probably because he took a huge step forward and maybe lived up to some of his recruiting profile.
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of RJ Hamilton. He's somebody who's had really big summers for Vanderbilt in the summer leagues, and it hasn't quite translated to getting playing time in Nashville. Now he's going to get that opportunity. Probably could be a leadoff guy. Jeff Lugie's a guy who I think is going to have a breakout year, but right now I don't think is beating RJ Hamilton out for the starting second base spot because they got to put RJ Hamilton somewhere. Nick, who are you highlighting on this infield?
I'm going to highlight Cider Cannon. Not only are his numbers really good from Dayton, but dude, someone's got to help that coaching staff behind the dish. And I think he like the numbers at the plate speak for themselves. But I mean, when we're talking about a pitching staff that we don't know what we're going to get, like Cider's going to be, he's going to be leading that pitching staff. Like he's going to have to really control them, calm them down. I mean, he plays a big, big role in this infield and the entire pitching staff. So more on the defensive side, more of like, kind of being the sort of, I guess, quote unquote, captain of this infield and trying to navigate this pitching staff. He's got a big, big role this year for Duke.
One of the things I'm worried about is typically when you transition to that catching role, the offense can kind of take a step back. So that's where I'm a little bit of concern with Cider Cannon. I mean, that's somebody you need to do what he did last year. He had 36 extra base hits at Davidson and hit 371. He's a guy that you need to still be able to contribute offensively, which is why I'm a little worried about his transition behind the plate. Although from everything I've heard and seen, it has gone swimmingly. Offense has been great. But that leads us to the outfield that I think the starting outfield, and especially if you include Cider Cannon in there, the outfield's actually really, really good. It's probably the highlight of the Duke team. You've got Tyler Albright, who I think was one of the more underrated stars last year, with Michael DiMartini and Aiden Zorn, 2 Dayton transfers. Bobby Marsh is probably going to play more first base and DH, but he's out there. And obviously Cider Cannon can play left field, so can Brooks Perez. But Micah, I'm going to let you highlight somebody in the outfield. This should be much easier than the infield.
Well, I'm gonna throw you for a loop, Monty, because I think there's a lot of key names, obviously, but I really like Bobby Marsh here. I think him being, he didn't really perform necessarily the way they expected him to at Miami, but he was incredible at Penn State. I think, again, you don't have him listed as necessarily a starting outfielder, but we do think he's going to be in the lineup. And obviously we'll rotate in and out of different positions out in the outfield. But I think he's going to be more like Penn State version Bobby Marsh than Miami version Bobby Marsh. So when you've got guys like Michael DiMartini, who obviously, like you said, A-10 player of the year at Dayton, Tyler Albright, the key real returning piece from last year's Duke team, who I know I saw a ton of during his time with the Burlington Sock Puppets. Really enjoyed watching him in the summers in the Appy League. But yeah, Bobby Marsh for me is the one that I just kind of circle as if Duke's going to be better than expected, can get back to the NCAA tournament, Bobby Marsh is going to have to be the Bobby Marsh of Penn State days.
Absolutely. I think we've hit the nail on the head a bit. This outfield needs to be what it can be, right? And then you need Cider Cannon to be what he can be. And then it's a good start there. But Nick, I know it sounded like you wanted to highlight Bobby Marsh yourself because you thought you were going under the radar and Micah beat you to it. But who are you highlighting, obviously, in this lineup? In this outfield?
Micah, just great minds, I guess. I'll highlight Tyler Albright. I mean, I'll stay away from the obvious pick and Michael DiMartini, but Tyler coming back, I think that's going to be huge for Duke. I mean, how is he going to adjust with like everything just changing around him? Like none of his teammates are there. His coaching staff is gone. I think this is going to be a big year for Tyler, not in terms of just numbers, but, kind of leading the Duke way, kind of showing everybody else like, hey, this is kind of how I do it and whatever. So I think having just one guy left over, I mean, he's not the only guy left over, but I think it speaks numbers that he just decided to stay and kind of trust this process. So the fact that he will be the starting left fielder, I think that's huge. So yeah, give me Albright.
Love that. Aiden Zorn is kind of an underrated guy. 25 extra base hits, 321 last year for Dayton. Kind of under the radar. He's really good. I'm excited about him, so that's who I'm highlighting. Moving
He got
along,
a lot of love from our friends at 64 Analytics. When you look at like some of the transfer stuff, he got a lot of love. Aiden Zorn did.
Good. Good to hear. I thought you said I got a lot of love. I was like, cool. No.
No.
Taking a look at the potential lineup on paper, there's Bobby Marsh in the DH spot. Don't worry, Micah. We got him in the lineup. I have him batting fifth. There he is, batting on the right side of the screen there. Jake Lambden is somebody who I saw leading off. I expect maybe more RJ Hamilton, but they're really high on Jake Lambden. He has experience from Xavier in that leadoff spot. He's a scrappy guy, kind of embracing that Muscara kind of mentality of just gritty. Let's just play our butts off and just do everything hard and do the little stuff right. But yeah, what do you think about this lineup? Does it look a little bit better than you originally thought coming into this conversation, Micah, or is it still about what you thought?
We've done 4 previews so far, Monty, and I think this is the worst lineup we've seen of the 4 so far. I don't see a whole lot of right? I mean, no disrespect to Tyler Albright, but him as the 4-hole hitter, not necessarily the world's, most notable bat in this conference. Again, there's a lot of upside with this team from a standpoint. I mean, expectations are so low for myself, like with what this team is going to be in 2026, that like I would not be surprised if I'm completely off on what they end up becoming. But, for me, I see some spots where, again, if RJ Hamilton hits, and I don't mean like obviously like batting hits, but just like does what he is capable of from a recruiting profile standpoint, that is a very dangerous 9-hole hitter. If, Nolan Johnson can take a step forward, that's a huge spot, right? If Cider Cannon can be what we think he might be capable of, they have potential, right? But I mean, there's just not a lot of, there's 2 or 3 guys in the lineup that legitimately scare me, and the rest, like with what we have from a pitching staff standpoint in the ACC, I would lean the matchup for the pitcher. So we'll see. I hope I'm wrong. I really do. I don't want to see Duke take it too far of a step back from last year's season, but this lineup does not scare me the way some of these other lineups do in the conference.
Nick?
I mean, I always seem to think that it actually looks better once, Monty, you put up the potential batting order. Then I see where they're listed. And it actually does look a little bit better, but I say that about every team. Look, it's a new era in Duke. And while I personally am kind of sad that old era is gone. Like we were so used to those names coming back, Ben Miller, AJ Gracia, Wallace Clark. I mean, Duke guys don't transfer. but with a whole new regime, it is kind of sad, but hey, it's a new beginning. I think you can get the best out of Bobby Marsh. I think Michael DiMartini, I think he will adjust very well to ACC play. I think Tyler Albright sticking around, kind of showing the ropes. I think he'll be fine. It's not last year's team. It just isn't. And that team almost went to Omaha. And a lot of those guys almost went to Omaha numerous amount of times, like twice, 3 times. So it's not a thing to rave about at the moment. The ACC pitching is just too good right now. And it's a lot of guys with not a lot of experience.
Yeah, you mentioned that that Duke in recent years, Tyler Albright in his previous 3 seasons has been within a game of Omaha twice and won an ACC championship.
Yeah.
All right, looking at Duke baseball schedule, I'm not a big fan of the graphic, but here it is. And surprisingly, we've done 4 episodes and Micah has not commented on a single graphic yet. I don't know if that's because he's not looking at our screen. He's looking at the actual team schedule page, but here we are. We got some key matchups. They're going to start off testing that pitching staff early. They have 4-game series to start the year. When I looked at the page, it said 4 games against Maine. Oh yeah, it is 4 games. There's a doubleheader. They're playing 4 games the next week against, is that Princeton for 4 games?
They've got Milwaukee for 4. They've got Princeton for 4. It's like you're reading a book, Monty. So it goes left. So you read the top 4.
Thank you.
Next 4.
But yeah, they're playing 4-game series on the weekend, double headers in each one. They're really going to test the depth of that pitching staff very, very quickly. They've got East Carolina twice. They got UNC Wilmington. Maine is, a team that has made the NCAA tournament in the last 3 years. I want to say they went to the Miami Regional a couple of years ago. Liberty twice. That's not going to be easy. They got UNC in a non-conference game on a Sunday at the Bosch during exam week for a non-conference game there. So, Nick, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts on this schedule? What are your thoughts on the 4-game series to start the year in non-conference play?
Yeah, it's a tough schedule. Wilmington, a NCAA caliber tournament team. ECU always there. Liberty tends to make runs. The out of conference schedule is a bit tougher. And once you get to ACC play, it's not bad. At Florida State, it's going to be really, really tough. At Georgia Tech is going to be really, really tough. At NC State is going to be tough. Now that I look at it, it's a tough schedule. Like all around, it is very tough. And what's interesting is that, Wake comes to town. I think that's going to be like a little heated game or heated series, I think. It's going to be tough for Duke to figure this out. They don't really have a lot of leeway to figure out the pitching staff. So we'll see.
All right, Micah, hit me up with your analysis.
I get to fight Nick again. I think the schedule is not that hard at all. You've got Maine, you've got Milwaukee, you've got Princeton to start. I like that Corey decided to do the 4 games. I think that's
what makes it tough, not necessarily the opponents.
That's fair. And maybe that's what Nick was more referring to.
Yeah.
But you open your conference slate at home with Notre Dame and Miami. Obviously Miami is Miami, but you're doing it at home. You go to Virginia Tech. Like some of your more difficult ACC series is like getting Louisville at home is kind of enticing. I also have to tip my hat to both Corey Mascara and why am I drawing a blank now on North Carolina's coach? Oh my gosh, this is terrible podcasting.
Scott Forbes.
Thank you, Scott Forbes, for a one-off Sunday game in Chapel Hill during exam week.
Yeah, what's funny is they play North Carolina 4 times in a row, but there's a nice stretch.
Yeah, a nice little week off in between, basically.
Yeah, for the exams.
I love that. Again, we on the last few shows, we've always highlighted a weekend series that we're most enticed about. It's got to be that Wake Forest series at the end of the season for me. Because let's be real. I mean, it's not going to be personal, right? Like, I don't think Tom Walter and Corey Muscara hate each other or anything like that. But, if you're Corey Muscara, you've had all year to kind of figure out your team. Again, let's be real. Duke and Wake Forest are going to be competing. Like, that's a recruiting rivalry is what that is right now. Because, I know a lot of kids, right, from Duke and Wake, like, you have to pick where you're going to keep your commitment to Wake, or are you going to go follow Corey to Duke if you're a young arm? So,
and we saw Jordan Rogalski is one of those guys who flipped.
Correct.
Already.
So, like, I'm excited for that series. Again, it is at Jack Coombs. In a year where I'm not super high on Duke's postseason hopes, like, that could be if they are still in the fight, right, to get them in, depending on, I think Wake Forest is going to be an NCAA tournament caliber team again in 2026. So, I think for me, that is definitely the highlighted series that I'm most excited for. If I can't just highlight the Sunday one-off against North Carolina at the Bosch, because that's just so fun. I love that.
Yeah, I love that we have two games that are non-conference conference games in Clemson, Wake Forest, and Charlotte, and then UNC Duke in just a random Sunday exam week game. I think that's really fun.
So dumb question. Like, I noticed other conferences were doing that last year. Why is it that we're doing this now? Like, what is the reason behind it?
Probably the scheduling, because Wake Forest and Clemson don't play otherwise. And then
is it just for like RPI? Like,
I couldn't tell you.
Conference expansion too. You want to play some
RPI? Like, in the era of conference expansion, like Wake Forest and Clemson is what, a 2-hour drive? Like, that's an easy midweek. Like,
well, they're playing in Charlotte too.
Yeah, so even better, right? But like I'm saying,
right.
Like, even if you were to do a home and away kind of thing, like, it's an easy midweek. It'd be like, again, like, they'll never do this, but if Virginia and Virginia Tech don't get paired together, or like Virginia Tech and Wake, if they don't get paired together, they're an hour and a half from each other. Why would you not?
Makes sense.
That's
what I
each
figured
other.
It was
Better RPI opportunity. And again, like, it doesn't hurt you. It's kind of nice because if you think about it, like, it gives your midweek guys a chance to face Power 4 lineups, because the lineups aren't going to really change. It's more the pitching that's going to be different. So it gives your midweek guy who you want to potentially have available for a regional run, like that Wake Clemson game, like, the number 4 starter is going to have to step up in a regional play. Not much better opportunity than to face a Wake Forest lineup and vice versa for Clemson, So I'm excited about those types of midweeks, or like, again, this one-off Sunday. Like, it's gonna be really weird. Not like when we see that when we go to do the preview for that week, Monty, and we're like, well, there is no Friday, Saturday, so a Sunday one alone matchup.
Right, and I was curious if
they ACC play, though being played on a weekend.
I was curious too. I thought it might be a doubleheader, but it looks like it's just one game.
Yeah, just a one-off. I wonder if like both teams, like if UNC is on like the regional chopping block, like the hosts, and Duke is on the like fringe make the tournament thing, if maybe they agree to a doubleheader, like, because
Duke normally plays.
Imagine if they do a doubleheader where 1 o'clock and a 7 o'clock, 1 is at the Bosch, 7 is at Jack Coombs.
That'd be cool.
That'd be crazy.
And they get to sleep in their own beds either way.
Exactly. I mean, like, or like do a brunch and a dinner game. 11 a.m., 7 p.m. They get to go back, shower, have some food, watch some film, and then get on the bus. That'd be awesome.
I love that. Yeah. What's funny is Duke normally does do a doubleheader game after exams. So, normally it's against a Radford or something like that, but an Elon or something like that. But anyway, we're going to wrap this up. Let's give our expectations for Duke. They're not going to be great. I mean, we're excited about maybe the coaching job or what this team's going to look like, but we're not all that optimistic. I'm probably the most optimistic. Micah, probably the least. We'll start with you, Micah.
Yeah, I think this is the worst team in the ACC right now in my preseason. I'm not super sold on them. But again, like, there is a potential for them to be better than that. And like, to be very clear, like, the future for Duke is, I think, very bright under Corey Muscara. I just think that year one, with what he had to deal with, like, I mean, Virginia is basically Duke from last year. Mississippi State is basically Virginia from last year. Like, there's just so much changeover. I mean, jokingly, this is basically Dayton from last year. But like, it's just it's one of those things. And I think too, like, knowing how Corey Muscara likes to operate, I wouldn't be surprised if this is a very experimental year too. Like you see guys like, not saying he gives up on the season, right? But he might not be playing to win the game. He might be playing to win the future in some of these situations. And so who knows? I mean, I think there's a world where Duke could sneak into the NCAA tournament if everything goes right. But considering their schedule, considering what this conference is, and considering that they have the most question marks, especially from a pitching standpoint, and like Corey Muscara can do wonders, but normally it takes a little bit of time to develop arms like that. You know, when your most what's the word, veteran arms were D3 transfers, and they're pretty much, and literally every single one of them is a D3 transfer for the most part. It's hard to be super excited about what, like, you know, Duke brings to the table in 2026. But prove me wrong, Corey. I'd love for that. I would love for Corey Muscara to be able to laugh in my face and be like, hey, we made the tournament. So,
Nick?
Yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot to write about. I think there's definitely some major upswing with the transfers they got.
Are we sure, Nick? Because I remember someone saying way too early Omaha 8 when Corey Muscara got hired. Are we sure that you're not? Are you out on Duke now, Nick? Did Nick?
Well, that was all before everybody at Duke left. So, but yeah, Corey was not happy when I told him I said that. Look, I think there's potential they can make the NCAA tournament. I'm going to lean no right now. It is a big plug and play. Figure out what you got. Experiment a lot. It's as it sits right now, bottom 5, maybe even bottom 3 ACC team at the moment. But again, Corey's the right man for the job. It's tough to. The situation he was put in was very, very tough. And again, it's Duke, so you can't. There are a lot of like other things you got to get by to like, you know, get these players and stuff in terms of academics. So major upside, I think. But as I'm going to sit right now, I don't think they make it. I think they're a comfortable bottom 5 as we sit here before the season.
Yeah, I think they're gonna do better than Micah thinks, just because they're gonna embrace that mentality. They're gonna be, you know, they got a lot of grinders on their team, a lot of guys who play with a chip on their shoulder, and I think that's going to benefit them. I think that's going to give them an ability to bounce back rather than spiral, especially when the expectations are low, that they're not going to have that pressure. They're going to play a little bit more free, and I think that's going to help them. I just don't. I need to see that pitching kind of perform in order for me to be convinced they're an NCAA tournament team. That's going to do it for us. We'll be back tomorrow with Florida State. Until then, it just means less.